Grange Month. Tonight we are, I'm going to spotlight myself for a second here. Tonight we are welcoming Amanda Brazana Rios, our Membership and Leadership Development Director, to lead a new member forum. This is just one of our many Grange Month Zooms tomorrow night, and I'll talk about this again at the end. Tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern, we will have Community Service Director Pete Pomper and our Community Service Forum. And he will be spotlighting 3 Granges that are doing some pretty awesome things nationwide. So be sure to tune into that. And then next week, we have some more Zooms coming up, but I'll talk about those at the end. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda because tonight is her night to lead this. So Amanda, it's on you.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for joining us. I see a lot of familiar faces, which is exciting. But I'm wondering how many new faces we have in the room. So I was hoping to get started with any of our folks who have joined in the past 2 to 3 years, maybe really in a very odd time to be part of Grange membership, to call out and let us hopefully see your lovely face and let us know when you joined and what drew you to Grange. So if you're one of those that's been here since about 2019 and 18, whatever, you feel like you're a new member.
Well, I joined in August.
All right, we'll take that.
And,
very nice.
And I'd actually lived next door to somebody who's been a member of the Grange for probably, I think he's going to get a 60-year pin, which as a membership person, I'm going to be giving him. And I basically was baptism by fire. One of the things was the first dinner I went to, I was actually shocked at how many people I knew there. People from all of the organizations I belong to, people from people I know in the community. It's just like, best kept secret. I'm trying to change that.
Nice.
But it was kind of a baptism by fire. The president asked me, would you like to do this and this? And so I ended up as the membership chairman and taking over the webmaster job.
Hey, nothing wrong with a new member being a membership chairperson, because you definitely know what new members are going through and what, drew you to Grange. So that's important. And hopefully people are mentoring you in some of the Grange knowledge and, ritual and spirit of the organization, as well as you're doing that for the new folks that you're bringing in. So that's awesome. And Steve, you've been on a couple of these, so you truly are baptism by fire.
Well, I'm just trying to absorb all the information I can. And so my wife and I joined the local Vonada Grange as well. And so we've been going to their meetings and just trying to get a lot of the cultural heritage that a lot of the folks in the Grange have had for the last 35, 45, 55 years.
And if you don't mind, before I ask if there's anyone else who's new, what was like the final selling point that made you say yes to Grange membership?
I think I really liked the idea of the way people interacted with each other. I mean, it was a little mini community. I mean, we're not exactly a small city here. And we're pretty spread out and diverse. We're not too far from St. Louis itself. We're about 20 miles southeast of it down the interstate. And so we're really kind of still in that metropolitan area, but the small feel was kind of like that.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else who's new over the past little bit of time?
Oh, Kim Potter here.
All right, Kim, how are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. It's nice to meet up with you all here.
Absolutely. So where are you from? What Grange are you in?
Well, I joined online. I have no Granges left in this area of Northwest Ohio, sort of near Toledo, shall we say.
Okay.
Big city. My parents, grandparents, aunt and uncles were members of Providence Grange in Lucas County. And
nice.
I come from a long line of Grangers, but somehow or another, they never got me involved in it. I don't know if they didn't have a junior Grange by the time I was old enough or not anymore, but I think they finally closed their doors, shall we say, officially, completely. That is, they still had a little bank account they were going out to dinner on. And I think that ended about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So,
And so what made you decide that e-membership was something that you wanted to pursue?
oh, I wanted to know more about the Grange that everybody in my family had belonged to, but I hadn't. And that kind of is it.
Well,
Very-
I will do a quick introduction. I see Daryl Flowers here, who is the membership chairman of Ohio. And I think that he might want to chit chat with you a little bit because
Sure.
I know that Toledo has been an area that he has been thinking needs a Grange again. So you may just find yourself as an anchor person for Fraternal Grange.
Well, maybe look into that. See.
Daryl, you want to say hi so he can see your face?
I see Daryl there. Hi, Daryl.
My ears perked up real quick. Actually, John and Janet Price are moving up to Perrysburg.
That's where I live.
So
I live in, I'm in Perrysburg. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So hey, we're almost halfway there. That's 3. Well, no, they have a son and daughter. So hey, we're up to 5. So hey, we're close.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Anybody else here joined recently? There's a couple of names I don't know who are on the screen now. All right. Well, I'll assume with nobody else chiming in that everybody else knows everything about the Grange. And so Jan Manning is on, and she said she can't get her video or audio to work right now, but she joined in 2019 in Montana. And Jan, if you don't mind typing into the chat as well, what made you decide to join and what Grange you're part of, I'll make sure to relay that to the group as well. And I saw Cade, and I believe Cade might be graduating out of the juniors and becoming a subordinate. Is that correct?
Hey, Kate. Hey, Kate just had to go grab a shower real quick and got back from lacrosse practice like about half an hour ago.
Fair
All
enough.
the lovely things to do with the kids and bedtimes.
Is he 13 and a half now?
Hey, real quick. He's coming back here just now. Just,
Well, hello,
Hi,
junior
I'm
ambassador.
14.
He's 14, so
Hi,
he's subordinate Grange now.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've been in the juniors since I was about 5, so
You're going to graduate, you're
nerve-wracking.
going to move on, and you're going to make a giant difference in your local Grange as a subordinate member. That's what you're going to do.
oh yeah, me and my cousin were kind of making plans on making some big step up with our Granges.
Nice.
With our Grange.
That's awesome. What Grange, local Grange is it again, Cade?
It's a Bushy Fort Grange.
That's right.
And,
in North Carolina.
so,
Awesome.
well, yeah.
go to North Carolina.
All right. Well, I guess we should probably let you get a shower. We'll see you in DC.
I'll see you in DC too. Bye bye.
Bye. So for our Steve and Kim, I'm wondering, and also if Jan wants to chime in, I'm wondering so far your experience with Grange, what has surprised you and what has made you feel like this may have been a good choice for you as a membership option? Kim, yours is going to be a little different because you're an e-member, so I know that you haven't gotten that fraternal experience.
I don't have that part of it, but it's been a sort of a family thing.
Oh, wow.
Grew up with Grange, probably as a kid, I think it was. I can remember being on a float in a parade for the Grange, things like that. So it's been around.
Nice.
So getting on as an e-member, I just kind of wanted to see how much of the Grange still existed. So I'm glad to see it's still up and running here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Steve, how about you? What's excited you so far? What's made you think that this might have been a good choice for you?
I really like the way everybody works together for the most part. I retired about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and actually probably I'm busier now than I was then, but I don't mind it at all because it's things that I feel I'm accomplishing something, helping along the things.
Nice.
Instead of filling out spreadsheets with numbers all day.
That's fair. What's your day job?
Well, I used to work for the Air Force as a civilian.
Nice. So you're used to regimented things is what you're saying, and maybe not grassroots though. So this is kind of
No.
exciting.
Yeah, it was in communications work, and I was basically contract management, that sort of thing. And so it was very detailed, but there's a lot of transfer in a sense because you still have projects, and we still do a lot of different activities on our Grange. And so we just finished a major fundraiser dinner, and we got team leaders and people, and it's somewhat similar.
Nice. Okay. Well, it sounds like they picked up a really good find because you're taking over that website and doing the things that we need to do in order to make sure that folks know about us. So that's awesome. I'm really excited to hear that for that Grange. Jan had mentioned that what surprised her was that no one wanted to go through the old rituals. All our members are eager, but are freaked out by the rituals, so we are letting them go. Our mission is still the same. We are just modernizing. We do a prayer and a flag salute, and then we have our program. This is what our new members want. Many who joined initially have not come back because of the rituals, and we are wanting to correct that. We're very involved in the community in service and have raised more than $20,000 in the past 2 years to fix up our building. So it's a different experience and good feedback as far as what you're finding from some of your folks that initially were there. I think that's something that we talk about internally a little bit, but we'll probably end up talking about more as years go on about how we introduce the idea of what is ritual and what is the heritage stuff that's part of the Grange. And the expectations of people both on their time that they're providing to the Grange and on what they want out of an organization as far as both the service element and that enriching part that some of the ritual can bring, some of the fellowship can bring, all these components that kind of work together as a nice little puzzle. So I think that that's really great feedback. And I think one of the things that we can talk about, sorry, I have a little bug flying in front of me and it's really bothering me. One of the things that we can talk about towards the end of this is how we do talk about some of our ritual stuff with our new members, because that's an important piece. Let me ask for you guys who have been around Grange for a while. And this is why I really love to have cameras on, but I understand some of you might not be in that mode right now. Show of hands, how many of you are doing the work as it is written in the book? So when I talk about ritual, a lot of times I really leave that to the degree work and stuff. While there's certainly a ritual element to our meeting structure, I normally talk about that as our meeting structure. So as it's written in the book, the specific opening, the specific closing, and kind of the order of business, how many of you guys are doing that in your meetings? Okay, so it's kind of
we are using the alternative.
okay. That also counts.
Not the old one.
Okay.
Which is kind of confusing because we're in Maine and most of them use the old ritual. Sure. And we don't. So okay. If you're a guest, it's like, what do we do now? Because the gatekeeper takes the password instead of the assistants going around and such. But we're adapting.
How many of you are still using the passwords? So that is really becoming kind of New England centric in a lot of ways. There's most Granges in a lot of other places have dropped that as part of their meetings that are the monthly meetings. I think part of that came as part of the action program 20 or so years ago when there was a move away from some of those pieces. And part of that's just, been, we know everybody here. Why do we have to take up this word? And so it feels silly. And then all of a sudden you get somebody new and you're not sure, are you supposed to ask them for the password? Or are you supposed to just be like, thank God we have somebody new? And so I often wonder, what the choice was in that Grange, but I feel like that's becoming a little more normal, that you don't see that taken as much. I wanted to just check in on the chat for a second. Elise said, I feel like we need at least the opening ritual to impress upon our members what is a real meeting. and what is not. Otherwise, they think everything can be decided, anything can be decided with a quick Facebook chat or with whomever happens to appear online. Not okay. We decoded ours last week really just for fun. And I think that's the talking about that password part. Carrie said that in Illinois, where she is, they haven't used password in over 20 years. And then Jan said, I really wanted to use the old rituals. And we started out that way last fall, trying very hard, but it was just not working. So no passwords. So that's some interesting feedback, I think. And like I said, it's kind of pretty representative of what we're seeing in a lot of ways. For you guys who have been around Grange for a while, let me ask, do you have someone or people that are considered the mentors, the folks that when you get a new person in, that you are asking them to mentor these new folks and give them kind of insights and background as to why we're doing things the way we're doing them, whether or not it's really old way, whether or not it's a kind of newfangled crazy way, whatever. I know Valley, Sam's a member there, and I know Valley assigns mentors, even if you've been in the Grange for a while, even if you think you might know it all, they're assigning mentors. What else? Anyone else assign mentors? Steve, did you get a mentor?
We sort of do.
Okay.
Usually I wind up being a big part of being mentors. Our Pomona meeting this is April, right? In March. I had juniors over the weekend. Okay. Our Pomona meeting, someone from Americany, which is in Harpswell down on the coast, said they had new members and they were hoping some of us would go to their meeting and go through it so that they had experienced people to go through the meeting.
Sure.
Well, 3 of us went and their new members weren't there because they had been told about draping the charter and they were either family or very close to the 2 people who had died. And they just didn't want to be there for the draping of the charter. Ben is our enterprises master and Pomona master and our deputy. He was there, and Helen's our secretary for both Enterprise and Saginaw Pomona, and she was there. And then Mother Marilyn was there. And we had a very good meeting, although some of the members had belonged for many years. They didn't usually present the flag. The flag was set up in place. And we went through that. And I acted as assistant, lady assistant, with one of their members who is the assistant. And Ben acted as steward for presenting the flag. So we went over that a little bit. And Ben was explaining different things. Helen was explaining some secretary stuff that Stephanie wasn't familiar with, and about the bonds and the secretary stuff that has to be done. And when they got to the reports from the different committees, they didn't have any committees. So I got up and told them about CWA. I had a CWA committee report. I explained that because we don't have enough people to have committees of 3, our bylaws now say we have a coordinator for the different committees. So the coordinators get the information that comes down from State Grange. And if something comes up so that we need a committee, then we have a committee. But otherwise, we're just coordinators for the different state committees. And it works good for us.
Do any of your Granges have committees in place
Coordinators.
or coordinators?
Yeah.
So you see, that's not as common. And again, I think that what you find is New England stays very traditional, whereas in different places in the country, you might not find some of these things that have held. And also just depends on sometimes the Grange size. I think some people realize that, you know, when you have a really small Grange, everybody's kind of plugged into everything. And there's good and bad with that, certainly. It's very nice to feel like everybody can be active and involved, but certainly once you get to a certain point of either activity or people, having those coordinators, having those committees certainly makes a lot of sense. It makes that meeting run a little faster. It allows people to, you know, put their trust in a group or an individual to get them the information. And it allows you to really make sure that someone is plugged into that information, because I have 2 junior directors sitting here. I have a community service director sitting here. And we all know sometimes how frustrating it is to send stuff out and just feel like, is this thing on? Is anyone out there? So having somebody that you can, you know, have committed to caring about the material you're sending is really, really a nice thing. So that makes sense. So I guess I figure that since we only have a few new members on, I may want to pivot a little bit so that this doesn't feel like it was not worth your time in visiting and attending, but I think it's useful for our new folks as well, to talk about how to ensure that the new member experience is rich and is exciting. And I think that the biggest thing that you've heard from some of these folks is, well, a couple things, that the way that we interact with one another, that culture in Grange, that we have a respect for one another, and we act civilly, and we expect kind of to help each other rise to that level of the best manhood and womanhood we can, is so enticing and important, and making sure that the Grange culture that we're in and that we're fostering really does stay civil and is embracing of everyone. Sometimes I think we hear that some new members feel like they've come into a group that either talks in shorthand and they really don't know what's happening, or that they've come into a group that already kind of has their rhythm and they don't know where they fit. And so it's important, I think, for all of us to figure out as new folks are walking in our doors. And for Steve, I think your role was almost predestined as far as the web, maybe not the membership, but the folks who invited you clearly saw a space that you filled and would be comfortable filling, hopefully. But knowing that folks feel engaged from the very beginning is going to be a really important piece of this puzzle of making new membership exciting. For a long, long time, we had a tradition in Grange, I think, where you waited your turn because, you know, Pete's been here for 30 years. And so Pete's the guy until Pete doesn't want to be the guy anymore. But a new generation of members, whether or not they're young or older, are coming in expecting that they're getting engaged really quickly, because we're selling them on that engagement, and we're selling them on that being part of the group that makes things happen and being part of the family. And secondarily, making sure that it's not just, you know, Maryland's kids that we're sending thank you cards or birthday cards or whatever to, but it's saying to the new member, you know, when is your birthday? You put it down on your application. We're going to celebrate you. We're going to make sure that you feel included in the conversations and in the celebrations, in that fellowship. So that's one of the pieces I think that's extremely important for us all to think about. And even if you're the new member, finding ways that you can say, not just I will take on the responsibility of the membership role, or I will, you know, help coordinate if we're going to do a degree day, but how can we make sure that we're including different folks in this that may not have done it before, that could teach me something a little different, that they may not have always gotten to express all of those things in the way that it's always been done, because it may have always been, Anne running the degree day. And so maybe now you're saying, I'd really like to do this, and I really like to see it. John, could you instead, mentor me in this piece? Not because I don't like Anne, but because, I know I've already learned a lot from her, and I'd like to engage you. So it's I think incumbent sometimes on you as you grow into your membership to be touching other folks who may not have been the ones to step forward. They may not have felt as comfortable with their knowledge of Grange or their deep history in it, but they probably still have something really rich and valuable to share with you. So another piece of the puzzle, I think, is, as I said, the folks that are coming to Grange membership are often looking to be part of that team early. And the committee part that Marilyn talked about, or, having coordinators take people on and say, this seems to be an area of interest that you really engaged with when you wanted to join, or you've shown interest in. Come be part of this discussion group, this committee, this whatever it's going to be called in your specific Grange, or, come out to a fellowship night that we're having. Those are really important pieces in order to engage them early, and hopefully pass on some of that stuff in a less, intrusive, less threatening way. Because there's a lot of these little Grange factoids that you can pick up just by sitting next to someone. I've learned probably 80% of the things I know about Grange just by having a few minutes to sit next to someone who's been in the Grange longer than I have, twice, 3 times as many times as I have, who will say, we used to, or the coolest thing I ever got to experience, or, oh, don't you know that we're having that event? And oftentimes they'll say something like, I'm going to Family Festival this year. It's going to be great. And a new person sitting there going, what's Family Festival again? And they don't know. And so just having the ability to have those smaller conversations is really important. And the last piece I wanted to say is for making those new members welcome, especially if you seem to have a really rich Grange culture that really does a lot of things together. They either have the fair booth, and it's always these 3 or 4 people who are doing specific and certain things. They have, a certain community service project, and there's always these people, finding a time that you can have an outing that's not just your meeting, that a couple of you are saying, hey, we're going to go to a play together, or we're going to, go out to dinner together, or something like that. And inviting that person specifically, I think, is a really important piece, because it's not all about the work. That's probably my favorite thing about Grange, is that, yeah, we come and we do a lot for our communities, but we get so much out of Grange that's to our personal lives. I know I have dog sitters and plant sitters. I know I have people who will come, pick me up if my car stops running. I know that I've got, a whole community of people that when I have an extra ticket to something, I can call on somebody and say, would you like to come and do this thing with me? And it's important, I think, that we pass that part of our tradition along, because this was a fraternal order. It is not a community service order. We do a lot of community service. It's probably our biggest linchpin. It's our biggest key element, but we were founded as a fraternity, and as one that has a brotherhood and sisterhood and helps each other, and making sure that that is something that somebody feels embraced by right away is so very, very important. I wanted to ask our new members if they had questions that they feel like maybe have come up. Maybe it's a language thing. Maybe you're like, why does this person use master and this one uses president? Like, where's that history? Or, hey, does anyone else use the password? But after we let Kim and Steve and Jan, and I think Elise might also be new or newer, kind of chime in and ask some of those questions. If you guys feel like you have any questions, I can say ask them, because the boss is here. So the worst case scenario is I don't know, and I say I don't know, let me ask the boss. While you're thinking of those, I'm just gonna give you some quick update on what's going on in the chat if you're not checking that out. Karen said that during COVID, her Grange couldn't get the password, so she couldn't get the password from the Pomona. If you are in a Grange that doesn't do passwords, I guess the quick background is this: Grange, as a fraternal organization, pretty quickly on put in a password. Partially, we talk a lot about, at a time when farmers and railroads were kind of at odds, we wanted to make sure that it was only Grange members coming in and getting the benefit of membership, but also that there weren't people coming in and actually, posing a threat to the livelihood of the folks who were members. They were potentially charging them more, not letting their goods go on the railroads or things like that. And so passwords came into place, and good, bad, or indifferent, 150 years after, while some Granges use them and some don't, that's still something we talk about. So it is a word that's created by who's considered, if I have to put things in layman's terms, I would consider them like the Supreme Court of the Grange in some ways when it comes to the ritual element. It's called the Assembly of Demeter. And so the high priest of that is the one who creates that word every year, and he transmits it to the national president. And the national president then gives it to all the state presidents at our national convention. And by January 1, the state presidents are supposed to have transmitted it out to all the local Grange presidents and Pomona presidents. In some states, I know it goes to the Pomona president and then it goes to the local Grange, but we'll save that because that's a little wrinkle that some have put in. It comes in a code. There's actually a cipher, which is kind of fun if you're into any kind of word games, which I am. And in theory, Steve couldn't just call our office and be like, "Hi, I'm a new member. Can I get the password?" It would have to be transmitted in that way. So again, some Granges use it, some don't, but that's the background on the password if you have any other questions. Elise said they're all new, actually. Coyote got caught in the Grange Guild split. And for those of you who might have to have some background on that, I'm happy to kind of share that in a little bit. Her president was very oriented towards homeschooling, but all the kids aged out about 6 years ago, and it was down to no members except her. So, all right, I like survivors. And she had no experience with the Grange. So she said she had to leave, or the president, I'm sorry, had to leave, handed down the keys and said, "Congratulations, you're it." So you were it, Elise. Good job. I think that there might be a few stories like that in the room. She has been recruiting. They have about 25 members now. And just a few years ago, they officially rejoined the Grange system and have been learning the system, getting all the official paperwork up to date. Because of course, like some Granges across the country, not just you guys, they lost their IRS designation after the paperwork hadn't been filled out. The last California annual meeting before the pandemic they attended, got their 6 degrees, and they were slowly getting on track and bringing Coyote Grange back. So that is a pretty awesome story. And you probably do have a lot of learning curve, but I know you have some great mentors out there in California that hopefully you're able to tap into. Yeah. Okay, good. Jan also said they're all brand new. They are a new Grange, so none of them had any expectations. Clean slate, which is really awesome and ready to get into action. And boy, sometimes those are really exciting. I think you and Elise can show that. Elise asked, "What's Family Festival?" That's a Pennsylvania tradition. Betsy Huber, who's our national president now, was state president when she started that tradition. And it is a kind of 3 or 4 day long event that's held at a fairgrounds that is owned by the Pomona Grange here in Pennsylvania. And they do all kinds of workshops and activities. That's where we hold our contests for like public speaking or talent, I should say, and some other things, the ambassador contest for the year, and just get together and really enjoy fellowship with one another. And boy, I love that event. And Jan said our new members are not interested in heritage yet, but they want to do community service, neighborhood interaction, and fellowship that nurtures family and agriculture. And appreciation for heritage will come in time, but once the camaraderie is established, and I think once the trust is established, like what exactly does this organization do and what does it mean? So I would agree with that. Let's see. And Dale. Okay, Dale said, "Hello, I'm the master of Alexander Grange 304 and Washington Pomona Grange in Washington County, Maine. I I joined the Grange in 74 at 14 and was very fortunate to have the degree work done by dedicated lifelong members that had it memorized. I feel that it's a must to keep the rituals of tradition, and that is what the Grange is. And Jan asked what the IRS designation that we're referring to. They've formed a 501c3 that's separate from the Grange itself. Its mission is simply to raise money for renovation and maintenance of the Grange Hall. So Granges are typically organized as 501c8s or 10s at the local level. You're still a nonprofit and have that status. You don't typically see people being able to write off certain things with donations to Grange or their dues, but if it's passed through, like if you know that Grange is taking money for a verified 501c3 and you can show that you gave it for this specific program, and they can say, we gave your money to this specific program, there's a possibility that your tax advisor will allow you to write that off. But those are fraternal designations that the IRS gives. And like every other 501c, you will get probably a card in the mail, and it will go likely to your secretary. Every year, it's a $9.90, and it's a really short postcard that you literally check, did you make $25,000 or more that year? If the answer is yes, you have to fill out a longer form. If the answer is no, that's it. That's all they care about.
It's 50,000.
50 now. Okay, sorry.
I believe it's 50.
Okay. I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever amount of money they ask, did you or did you not? Yes or no? Once you check that off, that determines whether or not you have to do a long form or that's all you have to do. But when they don't hear from you for 3 years, they can revoke your status. And that's bad news bears, because you definitely want to make sure that you have that in order to, if you ever want to change your bank account, if your insurance provider looks to make sure that you are a registered nonprofit. And in some states, you also have to file in a corporation or something like that. Jan mentioned that they've created their own 501c3. Typically, I'll just be very honest, we don't advise it. Partially because that organization can choose to walk away from Grange because it is a separate and distinct entity. And we've seen once or twice where that organization basically overtakes everything that the Grange is doing, and will, because it has many of the same members, decide that, for example, the Grange wants to close, but we're going to stay open. We may keep the name Grange on this 501c3, operate independently, and buy or be given the hall, or the other, monies or treasury and stuff like that. That has happened in the past. This is why we don't typically encourage it. Any Grange can work with our Grange Foundation, which is our national 501c3. As long as they write a letter to the board, it goes to Betsy and our chairperson, and it says what you're going to be raising funds for. And then those funds can come in. There's a small administrative fee in order for us to be able to do some of the things like the thank yous and things for your donors, and administer the account that would then turn that money around to that Grange. If you do have that 501c3, especially if it uses the word Grange, you need to be looking to link up with Betsy, our national president, or with Leroy Watson, who is on our board. There is a thing called a closely held entity agreement that has to be signed. And that has to be signed because if you're using the word Grange, which is a trademark, you need to have on file permission to use the name. And just so we know what's happening out there with that name, because it is incumbent upon us to defend and protect that trademark. We have to in order to keep it. And it's extraordinarily valuable. So it's a long-winded, a lot. And I'm sorry if you were writing any of that down. So I saw Karen raise her hand first, and then I saw Marilyn, and I see Betsy's light is on, but she's not got herself off mute. So I'm going to assume she's not trying to jump in, but I apologize, boss, if you are. So let me start with Marilyn, because she's unmuted, and then I'll go to you, Karen. Marilyn.
Is there a form or something? Because we've been a 501c3 since the 80s. And we get annual reports that we have to send in to the state taxation bureau.
It is possible. There are a few Granges in the country. I'm thinking of one in Washington specifically right now who have been organized and granted 501c3 status. Most of the time, all of us are going, we just don't know how that happened. Whatever lawyer or accountant you had at the time who filed that paperwork and whatever IRS agent you had review it, like I wish we had them for all of our Granges in some way, because it certainly makes it easier. But if the Grange itself is a 501c3, there's nothing necessary. If you had formed a separate, completely separate entity, so your Grange meets and does everything, but then this separate entity has its own board and its own bank account and all that type of stuff, and it's a 501c3, that's when we get into the closely held entity agreement. So you're good. And God love you. I wish we had that designation for a lot more Granges.
Well, it was before I joined, but the one who was master back then happened to be my boss. So I'm sure he was the one because of the way he ran his own business and stuff. So he had the knowledge.
And Betsy, thank you for clarifying that it's not an actual postcard anymore. It's an online 990 that you're filling out. I think I remember that I did not get a postcard last year, and I was told that the old secretary, who's no longer even part of our Grange, had filled it out for us. She knows us and her granddaughters are in it. But I don't think I remember that she said it was online. So hopefully she filled it out right. So I apologize, but Betsy's right. Betsy's right. It is online.
Some states file those postcards for all the subordinate Granges in their state.
Right.
They have what's called a group exemption. And then so the community Granges don't have to worry about it, but just make sure that that's happening so that you don't lose your status.
We had somebody from the one of the other Granges in the area help us get the IRS paperwork together. I think I'm trying to remember. I think she said she made us a C10 so that we're subordinate to the California one. We still have to file the postcard, but watch out because the postcard, it says, does your nonprofit typically make more than 50,000? And there was one year we had made slightly more than 50,000, but we don't typically. So I had sort of checked. We do not typically, because it actually says that on the form, the postcard typically. But then California, for their nonprofit status, required us to file the IRS long form anyway, because they wanted the long form.
Okay. And if you don't know if your state does this, it's a good idea to check it with your state president or secretary, because it is possible that you have to do it and it may be being sent. As I said, it was sent to an old secretary who hasn't been secretary for probably 5 years at least. And the IRS still has her name on our stuff. And I can't seem to get that figured out with them, although we've at least changed the address. So the one problem with everything in life right now, not just the Grange, I think, is that a lot of these things have become less than friendly to volunteers who didn't come here to be, as Leroy says, volunteer bureaucrats. So there are lots of little hoops and things that you might not know, and that it's really good to be able to check in with your state Grange. And if your state Grange doesn't know, to be able to touch base with national. But there's sometimes that we'll say things to you, just as Betsy did, which is like, some states do, but we don't know if yours does in some cases. So we may be able to help track down some of that information as well. But yeah, these are all fun little quirks of being part of a volunteer organization anymore. And I'm sure any of you who are involved in like church boards and things like that feel the same. All right, so Karen had her hand up next.
Yeah. Well, we were one of those Granges that lost their IRS status. So we had to go through the whole process, and it actually took a long time for a while in there to try and get all the monies back. And because there's a lot of legal process that you have to go through. But we finally got it. But one of the reasons is that we have, during COVID, our secretary was in the hospital, not with COVID, but with a lot of other things. And then she couldn't get, and then she was also in a nursing home, and we couldn't get in touch with her. And so I was the secretary, and it just kind of, or interim, and it kind of, because we couldn't vote out a new secretary because we weren't meeting on Zoom, so we couldn't make do any voting. And so, and we couldn't get the password, as I was saying, that, had no password. So that was why I couldn't get the Pomona password, because I couldn't get the subordinate password. And there was just, and then it finally, and then this trying to get the state secretary to know that, that, and they kept sending it to the old secretary. But so finally they ended up trying to get them to say, okay, I'm the secretary. So they had to send it to, finally they ended up sending it to me, which took a long time to get the process, get her, thinking, oh, all right, well, we'll try and send it to you. And so it was just kind of a complicated thing, but now we have a new secretary. I'm not the secretary anymore. But
and I would just like to say that this is actually a really great example of something that probably will frustrate the crap out of the brand new members, to the point where it is. We talk about this a lot. There are generational differences, and y'all at a certain point will put up with a lot more than some folks who are younger than you will. And so some of this stuff, I think, is really important to note that we've got to do a really good job of making sure that we are making Grange a place that is friendly internally, because the whole world feels against, us or nonprofits or whatever. So when we make things harder, we are asking people to see themselves to the door. And so stories like that, I won't lie, make me want to burn something down, because I know what we're doing is turning people off. It's not to say that we don't need structure. Every organization needs structure in order to function. But certainly when something like that happens, Karen, I know that you are more than willing to be a forceful object in the room. And I would really encourage you to sit down with your state leadership. And in Vermont, you typically know some of the leaders who are coming up in the ranks, and say, we've got to fix this, because other folks aren't going to do this run around the way we have. Okay, so I want to just hit a couple things in the chat. So Anne Marie asks, since the Grange is not nonprofit or not for profit, does this allow our Granges to get a raffle license? It depends on your state, but 99% of the time the answer is yes. Or on your county, depending on how your state functions. So yes, I'm going to say typically, but since every state law and every county kind of works a little differently, you may want to check. But as a 501c, that should qualify you, because the Eagles, the Elks, the Masons, the whatever, they all get these raffle licenses in most places. So if you can just check, your surrounding communities, if there's a Lions and Elks or whatever, those other, not Lions aren't fraternal, but what are those other fraternal systems? If they have a raffle permit, if you're seeing things come out with like the special license number or something like that from them, if that's the way your state does it, then I would say, yes, you are absolutely eligible to apply for all of those. Nancy asks, what do you suggest can replace the formal ritual? It's a total turnoff for newbies. And that's a really good question. I think that's a big part of our internal debate. I guess I want to defer to the boss for a minute. Although we don't always have to agree, but I'm going to at least defer here and ask, what do you suggest can replace the formal ritual? It's a total turnoff for newbies. Betsy?
I think there's a difference between ritual, which in my mind is the 4 degrees, which we encourage new members to become accustomed to the Grange organization for a while, before they go to see the full 4 degrees. The opening and closing of the Grange, I don't consider ritual. I consider that our meeting procedures. It's just how we run our meetings. And I really encourage Granges to use that. We've discovered a new reason why it's important to use it, because the IRS is watching. Those Granges who are a 501c8, as Amanda was just talking about, they have to have a fraternal purpose. And the way that we prove that we have a fraternal purpose is our meeting procedure. So if you're not doing any kind of opening ceremony, even the alternative is fine. You just need to do something to show that you are a Grange, because a couple Granges in Washington State have had their nonprofit status revoked because they were not acting as a fraternal organization. You couldn't tell that they were a Grange. They were just a bingo hall.
So I agree with Betsy on all of that. And the one thing that I would say on top of that is, as she mentioned, I mean, doing that opening and closing is important for a number of reasons, in part just because it really reminds us that it's time to do Grange work. It's so easy to get into a meeting, and especially now when everybody wants to kind of catch up with each other and, do whatever. And you forget that there's a little bit of protocol and procedure to go through, just because that stuff makes the meeting more expedient. Having that president who can move from topic to topic, or in this case, order of business to order of business, and keep things moving along, is probably more important than how long it takes you to do, whether it's the long form, the short form, opening and closing. Karen mentioned at the very beginning of this, before we even really started, that her Grange doesn't have a hall. And I know that that's true for several of us. So, it was really odd for the local Grange that I'm in to say to the gatekeeper, are the gates secure? When we were in a pavilion, like, there are no doors, let alone gates. So, we excised that. But that was literally the only thing we did. And we had also a lot of new members. And we were still able to kind of speed through some of that basic stuff of the work of another day demands our attention. Let us give thanks, go right into the chaplain, and then go into the pledge. And I think, if it's done in that format, the rest of the stuff that follows is done in a way that is expedient, because everybody knows they're in a Grange meeting and there's work to do. So, if you're excising something little, or if you're tweaking something, but you're still doing all of the rest of the stuff, you might be fine. In some state Granges, you may not be. It depends on the culture, I think. And it depends on the reason that you might say, what, today we are going to just skip this small piece. But for the most part, I would agree that I think it's more the ritual of the degrees that's the scary part, the part that folks who are new are going, what are we talking about? And frankly, we don't do ourselves favors in a lot of ways, because we'll hype these things up. Oh my goodness, you have to see it. We put blindfolds on you. There's capes, da da da. And all of a sudden I'm going, huh? And so, instead of saying, the first degree, they talk about, what we learned from spring, and really give an explanation of what someone is going to learn out of it, not what they're going to see while doing it. But the meeting opening and closing, I think, is not that scary. And that again comes from experience of seeing, 50 new members over the past year who'd never heard of Grange, couldn't spell it before, seeing ritual which is really the meeting proceedings happening and not really flinching, just because that's the way we do it. And then we move on to the business. So I have a lot of, I guess, feelings. I have a lot of understanding for it being scary. I think, though, the scarier part is some of the stuff that can wait until someone's in and they've had time to have a good mentor who can explain stuff. Let me ask our new members here. Steve and Kim, you haven't been in a meeting. Elise, Jan, how about for you guys? The hour of labor has arrived. The work of another day demands our attention. Let each repair to his or her allotted station. When you start hearing that, is that off-putting and scary? Or are you concerned at all? Have you seen the degrees?
I'm a 40-year Mason. I've been through so many degrees. This is not a problem for me. And I know a little bit of the protocol for the Grange just from listening to my parents talk, but I've never seen the degrees, no.
Oh boy, we are going to have to make him a fraternal member there, Daryl, and get him, because he doesn't seem scared at all.
Oh, I like ritual. I can have fun with it.
How about you?
Well, I put something in the chat.
Meeting, we had our 5th degree just last Saturday, so missed it by a year. We'll get him next year.
Oh, there you go. All right, Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I just put something in the chat there, and I think when my wife and I joined, we at Turkey Hill Grange pretty much have simplified a lot, but we still have ritual, and we went nowhere near what I've read is about the traditional new member ritual. So ours was a very simplified, but I appreciated it because, and at least 2 other organizations I've been in, it was like, okay, your check cleared, welcome. And that was it. This makes, I think what we did at the Turkey Hill Grange was, at least you feel, okay, this is part of it. I'm involved in this. I'm part of the different officers have a few words for the new members. Okay, that's something to look forward to and understand. And having been in the military for 30 some odd years and then a civilian working for the government, you kind of see a lot of that ritual. So it didn't really scare me. I would have liked to have a little bit better idea of what was actually going to happen, but that's just me.
I noticed that Elise had put in the chat that they have a little fun with the formal meeting closing, opening and closing, and some giggling about some of the formality is encouraged. And she noted the fatherless children. And I got to tell you that previously in a Grange where there was new folks and the president was new to the organization, that was like her big gripe was fatherless, the fatherless and the widows. It made it feel as if women couldn't stand on their own. And so, honestly, we changed it. We changed it to being all those who are affected by loss. Because there's nothing, I guess, more frustrating than us getting derailed by a discussion that didn't quite matter. I mean, what's the spirit of the thing, right? I get in 1867 where it came from, but the spirit of it today truly is, do we, care about those who are in mourning regardless of gender? I would probably say so. And so we changed it. That good, bad, or indifferent, I think it kept with the spirit. But, if you're getting stuck on one thing or another, maybe it's time to look at, how you can adapt, but as long as it's within the parameters. Now, that said, was that something that was approved? Our state president said yes. And so that's as far as we went with that. Is it something that's going to be approved in every state? No. I don't know in Maine that they're going to tell you that you can change the prayer or the, something like that in the closing or whatever. So certainly some of this is also knowing, your membership, and then knowing to be able to say to the state, this is why we want to try something different. And taking the answer that you're given, or, being able to explain more clearly why you're asking to make exception. Let's see. Dale said, then you see, I'm sorry. Dale and Wendy were kind of having a back and forth here on the chat. I apologize. It's kind of hard to do this and look at the chat at the same time. Elise said in the new member initiation, we always say a person is worthy instead of not an improper person, which seems discriminatory. Again, I mean, it's just a way to come about that. And I think probably if you talk to your state president, they would give that a giant thumbs up. And that's where I would worry about the things. And then their state president can argue it on the national floor if they want, you know, or something to that effect. Betsy said these changes and tweaks can be presented as resolutions to make the change official. And absolutely. That's the next part. I mean, all of this is good until somebody tells you it's not good anymore. And so it's important, if you see things that you think could be modernized or changed, that you're going through the process, which is that writing a resolution, passing it at your local level, then getting it off to the Pomona if that's required in your state, getting it off to the state and having the state have the debate about it, and then sending it off to national in these cases where it's tweaks and changes to some of these pieces that are, you know, solid parts. Steve Coy said, I think sometimes the reason that newbies don't like the opening and closing is because the officer put no effort into it, into executing with any degree of pride. When officers stumble over words, not sure how to do the floor work, et cetera, it can be less than effective. Certainly, that is a big concern. For those of you, especially taking in new members, you know, these things are only as impressive as we are. So, and they're only going to be probably as tolerated and accepted and then loved. And we have to remember, it goes that way, right? It's tolerated and then accepted and then loved, unless you've maybe come in already in the spirit of, you know, having been in other fraternal structures or something. That's only going to happen if we're doing it and showing that it means something to us. Karen said, we don't have enough room to do the rituals. And I can understand that as well. But I think that there's still things that you can do, even if it's just sticking by the words that you have in the book. So, okay, so I want to kind of veer off that topic for a little bit because I know we're at 10:05. I'm not trying to keep us forever, but I do want to be able to have any other discussion that, especially the new folks, Elise.
Oh, I have something fun to share. We made since I guess we do have room to do the rituals if we wanted to, but we generally have a smaller meeting. And in lieu of setting up a big room with the tables and everything and the graces and altar, I made a shadow box. Me and some of the others made a shadow box with the altar in it and a flag. And we have that at the meetings, a little shadow box with the altar and the flag.
You said you have a small meeting space, so that kind of works.
No, I mean, we could have a bigger meeting space, but as a nod to the altar, and we have a shadow box with a little dollhouse table and a little bowl of fruits on a little bowl of, you know, wheat represented, little silks with the letters like the altar, just and a shadow box. So we have that at our meetings.
I actually really love that idea for the Granges that we know meet in people's living rooms that are small, or restaurants, especially. The ones that meet in restaurants always boggle my mind because I think to myself, where are you putting all of these things that we kind of expect or require, and how are you doing some of that stuff? And so that's an interesting idea for them as well. So my new folks, are there any other questions that you guys have? And you don't have to be like brand new, certainly, to ask questions if there's something that you're thinking of and you want to tap in on this.
Is there any documentation, guides in writing or anything from the National Grange about being a mentor?
So we have a presentation that was done last year at our at our regional conferences about mentoring in general, like the concept and the, you know, some of the theory about how to be prepared to be a mentor, how to prepare to be a good mentee, how to build that relationship and that type of stuff. There's not something specific on, okay, now teach them this. Okay, now teach them this. Okay, now teach them this. that's been created. Although, I mean, that's not the worst idea of having kind of a, year one mentor outline, and that would be pretty good. We have a resource guide that works pretty well for Granges and especially for new Granges and things like that, that you could almost follow some of that, but it also goes into the weeds of things like the 501Cs and the, how to take digital payments and stuff like that. But there are little pieces that I think could be useful there as well. So that's a good suggestion. And I can send the mentoring
And
guide.
I just dropped that mentor PowerPoint, and the guide, that bit.ly is in the chat already.
And is it capital G?
It is a capital G in that one,
Sweet.
which I almost never do in links.
So fair warning, if we ever send you a link on bit.ly, and something is capitalized, it has to be capitalized. Something is lowercase, it has to be lowercase. It's one of the very few places that in the web that things are case sensitive anymore. And it's because they're short links. So every character matters to be exactly right to get you to the place it's sending you to, because we don't want to give you a web address that's this long. We want to give you something this long and easy to type. So when you copy that down, if you're handwriting bit.ly/Grange mentorship, make sure you put a capital G for Grange, that first G, not the second one.
And that takes you to a Google Drive that has a PowerPoint in it. Amanda then turned the PowerPoint into a video that you can watch if you process better that way. And there's also a worksheet in it on how to define what a good mentor is, and are you a good mentor, and what are you looking for in a mentor.
Any other questions? I'm gonna ask my kind of colleagues who are still here, and Betsy also, to join in, kind of giving some last tips and thoughts about embracing new members and kind of welcoming our folks who are here as new members. But I'll ask if there's any other questions one more time first before we do that. No. Okay. All right. So rock, paper, scissors, who wants to go first? I didn't get to introduce some of my colleagues, and I wasn't sure, how many new folks we would have and what questions we would have and type of things. So I figured I'd be introducing them as we went along, but we didn't do that. So in my upper right-hand corner, I see Samantha Wilkins, who is our junior director. New members come in all shapes and sizes and ages, including 5 years old to 13 and a half, 14. That's junior program. And that's what she directs. So anything that you want to add wisdom wise on embracing the 5 to 14 sect, that's really important to get into the Grange, because they have, great memories of it and stick with us.
I think one of the biggest things is just embracing them into your meetings. Times have changed where we used to lock the juniors away in an ante room while the adults were meeting. And it's times have changed, and we've started opening our doors to letting juniors kind of be a part of our subordinate meetings. And I think that's fantastic. So instead of just letting them, run crazy around the hall as some do, give them some sort of task to be a part of your meeting with you guys. If it's sitting next to the chaplain, helping them out, or at the master station, getting to bang the gavel in some way, shape, or form, including them as part of your meeting process is, huge for them to feel all inclusive and to start learning the true traditions of the Grange, how the meetings are ran, and how all of our processes happen as far as, voting on something or writing a resolution, which is new to a lot of people. It's I'll try to include them as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, they're being included in so many other things. And there are so many other leadership organizations out there for kids, starting in the 5, 6, 7-year-old range, even if it's the Scouts or the 4-H or something. So when they come to Grange, if all they're getting is crafts with no substance on, learning and activities that don't allow them to have word, part, and deed, and really take some lead in it, they're seeing us as a lesser organization, and we are not. we were one of the first to have these type of programs for kids. So definitely try and embrace that Sam's talking about. All right, so in my upper left, I have Phil Vonada, who is the communications director for the National Grange, and let us into this, and we'll in just a little bit lead us out of this. But Phil, any words of wisdom that you have, especially for communicating with new members?
For communicating with new members, one of the things that I talk about a lot is making sure you embrace new members and embrace their ideas. Everybody comes in so full of ideas and wanting to try new things. And one of the biggest things for me is letting their ideas be heard and letting people run with them. The way that we kill members and kill our membership is by, the old adage, well, we've done it before and it didn't work, or we can't do that because so-and-so's grandfather did that 27 years ago. And so much has changed in the last 10 years. So much has changed in the last 5 years in terms of technology and the way things that work. So letting people try their ideas in your Grange can only serve to help your Grange. One of the other things that I encourage is partnering with another organization. So if you have a member that comes in who's also a member of, if they're a Boy Scout family, find a way to encourage them to get the Boy Scouts involved too, because you're going to keep growing your membership through connections with other organizations. I also want to do a quick screen share here, if I can get to the right tab, because I do want to show that there are some places on the website that are full of information that you can use and that are free to you. They might require you to log into the website, which if that's the case and you don't have a login, you can contact me or Stephanie Wilkins, our IT director, and we'll help you with that process. But there's this member resources tab here on the National Grange website that when you're here, if you drop down to this publications page, that's kind of where I'm hanging out right now, and it's going to reload again in just a second. This has our program guides. This has a bunch of information about how to talk to new members, things that you can show new members, the junior program guide, the youth handbook. It has our communications handbook, which has information about how to properly use the Grange emblem and the logos, has information about press releases and getting information out to the public. Up here, the National Grange roster is something that you should really take advantage of. This has the email addresses of every state president, every state officer, that you can immediately get in contact with. If there's an issue, you don't always need to come to me and Amanda and Sam at the national level right away. And you can try to talk to your state directors first and introduce your members to your state directors. Invite your state directors to your meetings to encourage statewide growth. And I think that's one of the things that I really want to encourage is that, we have this, the Grange is the fraternal organization. So connecting Grange to Grange is really important as well. So teaching new members that, yes, we are members here of Penns Valley Grange, but 20 miles up the road, we also have Bald Eagle Grange, and we work together on these projects. And then other thing here, the member resources is under the membership and leadership documents is the other one that I think will be really useful for you. This has the information. It has some great brochures that Amanda created last year and are available through the Grange store, but you can also download directly off of our website, like this one that says, "Welcome to the Grange." And here it's a Welcome to the Grange brochure that you can give to new members. There's another one that explains what is the Grange, the sneak peek, what to expect when you come to a meeting, how to set up your hall, what different things look like. Here are the officers, here are the staves. For the people that said that the ritual, and when they say ritual, really mean the opening and closing, is scary and people don't want to participate, explaining some of the things through these quick methods is going to help go a long way. I will say I know that you can get through the opening and closing in less than 5 minutes because we have to when in the Parley Pro competition. Parley Pro, for those that don't know, is the parliamentary procedure competition. That's a youth competition at the national level. And so it doesn't take long to get through the opening and closing and get down to business. So don't be scared of doing it. I know the language can sometimes be clunky, but it is the thing that sets the Grange apart from other organizations that kind of have similar missions. And I'll stop talking there because I could go on forever. So,
and I just want to add for you guys, some very rare folks who come to Grange now will say, I don't do email, or, I don't want any communication. But for the most part, everybody who is joining something today is probably using email. So whether you like email or want it, please make sure to get their email and send it off to your state and to National Grange so that they can be receiving direct communication, because honestly, we are all doing so dang much at the state and the national level, at your Pomona level, at your local Grange, that there is no way during secretary's reporting time, I've tried, trust me, that you can share all the information about what Grange membership has to offer. You cannot tell them about every new benefit, every Zoom meeting they could attend, every festival, conference, yada, 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 that's on the schedule. It just won't happen. And they've paid for the opportunity to do any and all of those things. So getting their email, getting them on the patrons chain mailing list, they can take themselves off if they get sick of it. But it is absolutely, to me, theft when we don't get that information to those members, because it's theft of services. They have paid, they are welcome. They have to know that maybe not anyone else in their Grange likes legislative stuff, but they may love it, and they are welcome at the national fly-in, for example. And if nobody else there likes it, they're not going to say, oh, by the way, you have this opportunity as part of this organization, probably. And so it's great to know it as the mentor for the new member, but it's also great for them to just hear it themselves and then go to you and say, what is this thing? Have you ever gone? Is it interesting? Is it worth my money or my time? So the other part, communications wise, please connect them so that they're seeing all that is there to offer. One more person, I think, before, because Pete jumped off a little early, I was going to introduce him as community service director. So before Betsy, one more person to my bottom left, I have Ann Bircher, who is the national lecturer, who is not on staff as the lecturer used to be, but is definitely, the head of some of our programs and contests at the national level. And so I wanted to introduce her and have her be able to just mention a few things for, giving the new member the great experience that they're entitled.
Well, good evening, and thank you. I've been thinking, when we think about new members arriving at our Grange meetings for the first time, maybe before the meeting even starts, we have a sort of a little preamble with just sort of a little history about what these words are that you are about to hear. And my own Granges in Minnesota have all been meeting, for the last 2 years virtually. And we've been at least reading through the opening and the closing in our manual. Yeah. We haven't been able to do the ritual with marching but we have had our Bibles, we have had our master's tools, and our flag, and sometimes it's been rather humorous, but but I think maybe if we know if there's a new member present, we should begin with a little preamble, what to expect. These are words, many of these words are from the 1860s. We tried to revise the message still about agriculture, about seasonality, about community, about connections, and maybe a short little paragraph is something that I can create, and Amanda and Phil, I know you will edit and fix it for me. So I think I would like to try to do that as an option, because the words and the ritual shouldn't stop anybody from joining this organization. This is an amazing organization to be a part of.
And I just want to note, last year, for example, when we reorganized our Grange, there was the photography contest, which I know Anne has continued from the last lecture. And that was such a, I mean, everybody's got one of these things now that has all these lenses on them. And it was such a simple way to get new members feeling good, because they were able to share like their favorite photos, and then we sent them to the state, and one of them took first place at the state, and we were able to send stuff off to national, and one of them took third place in national. And that was certainly extraordinary, and that's not going to happen in every case, but it was such a great way to get our new folks feeling like there was no barriers. It didn't matter if you'd been here for 50 years or 5 years or 5 minutes. Grange membership was fully open to them from day one. And so the contests that she has in her department, I think, are also a really phenomenal way. If you've got a new member, tell them about the contest. If you've got a new member, heck, do something in your Grange to encourage that contest. Maybe have a photography night where they give their favorite, photo, a little quick view for everybody or something, or teach them the quilt block stuff or whatever. Photos are a little easier because everybody can do it kind of, but just making sure that they know that they can explore all of their talents and show off to the rest of the Grange family what their skills and talents are, is super important, and that comes out of her department. So I really appreciate that department as well. All right, so I now defer to the, oh, wait, we have a question. Is that Anne?
Yes, it is. And I spent some time and I can't find the directions for the quilt. I've forgotten that question. The quilt block contest, it says it's under the lectures department, but I went online and it said in the paper or something that it was, the form and everything was on the national site, but I couldn't find it.
Okay, I think Phil is going to drop that into the chat for you. Can you see the chat, or are you on a phone?
I did. No, I'm not on a phone. I found the chat once, so I can find it again.
Okay, I think he's going to drop it in there. In the event that you don't see it before we get offline, just stick around towards the end, and we'll make sure to get your email so we can email it to you. And it is in the chat now, so if you can't find it, just let us know at the end. Okay.
Oh, okay. I just didn't go far enough, I guess, on the website.
No, you're good.
Okay, thank
Amanda,
you.
Steve also has his hand up over here.
Okay.
Yeah, just a comment on what Ann said. One of the things I did early on was, since I really didn't know a whole lot, I ordered the orientation kit that had the collection of brochures, and I passed them out at the first board meeting I attended. And actually, several of the people on the board, some of them who've been there, were quite surprised at what was in there, because they said, I didn't know that. Or, that's right, I forgot that years ago. So I think that I give an orientation before each meeting, even if maybe if there aren't new members or guests, like be of use.
Thank you. Thanks for that input. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to let our worthy national president, Betsy Huber, kind of close us out with some words of encouragement on dealing with new members, to our new members, all of the things, membership, before we close out for the night. So Betsy.
I don't know what I can add that hasn't already been said. I agree with everything that the staff have talked about. Mentors are very important for new members, and just talk to them. When somebody comes into your hall, your meeting place that you don't know, don't whisper to somebody else, who's that? Just go over and talk to them. I've been in that situation where I've entered the room actually as a state officer and nobody came over to say hello. So that's just not acceptable. I think that's the most important thing we can do is be the welcoming people that we are, that we say we are. And mentor new members, help them along, help them to understand, and don't use jargon. Just last week, I was in a meeting. It was my first time as a member of that board, and they all talked in acronyms, and I didn't have a clue what they were talking about. So we use a lot of words and phrases that other people may not understand. So just be aware of that and explain what you're talking about when you catch yourself using some Grange jargon.
That would be a fun game, Betsy. Like your next meeting, one of you pretend to be a brand new member, and just every time you have no idea what they're talking about. Just...
yeah.
Also play Grange jargon bingo.
Ooh, we need to make one of those.
Coming this year to national session.
I like it. I like it.
So
thanks
Elise,
to everybody. Thanks to everybody for being on tonight. This is a great group.
Great turnout.
Good discussion. Thank you.
You can also play Grange jargon Jeopardy.
Sure.
I think we absolutely could.
It'd be part of our trivia night later this month.
There we go.
Just real quick, I found a picture of the shadow box I made and I wanted to share it if that's okay.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
please. You might need to ask me to share screen privileges, but
Well, they're figuring that out. Thank you all for joining us and for your input and everything. Thanks for welcoming our new members. Welcome, Kim. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
And everyone else who is new to the Grange. And thanks for being part of our Grange membership team. I mean, because I don't care how much they would ever be able to pay me. I can't get you new members. You have to do that work yourself. And when you get somebody, you got to keep them. And again, that's work you have to do. So thank you for being part of that membership team, because we are really getting close right now to seeing some growth. And so, you know, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And let's work on finding that fountain of youth so that we don't lose any more of the great members that have made us great, right? So did you figure out how to share us here?
unfortunately, I would have to make Elise the host to be able to share, which would mean I wouldn't be the host anymore. Which
it's about to end, doesn't it?
You can make her a co-host. There's a co-host.
No, because unfortunately, the way that the meeting was set up beforehand, I can't change who has screen sharing privileges. So Elise, can you send it to me though? Because I will share it with the people who are on the meeting. So if you email it to me, I'll put my email in the chat here.
And then I'll email it right out to you, and
sure thing.
Maybe we could.
Oh wait, I only sent that
if
to
it could
Wendy.
happen real fast.
And I was gonna say you can unco-host me and make her co-host if you want. I think
It's only the pure host.
only one. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't know why it was set up that way, but it's okay. It's all good.
Well, you know, this will be a great thing to be able to share as a piece of the PC or something. Just like a cute little, hey, this is a great idea.
If you don't know what the PC is,
yeah.
If you don't know what PC is, that's our internal jargon. It's our weekly e-newsletter called Patrons Chain. I did put a subscribe link in. I'm sure you're all signed up for it already, but if you're not, you can subscribe. It's free. It comes out once a week. We go through a cycle of the departments. So every roughly 8 weeks, you hear from one of the directors. We write kind of in cycles. Every 4 weeks, roughly, is a legislative update from our legislative department. It's a really great way to stay connected with what's happening at the national level.
Or Good Day. You could put it in Good Day too.
You can also put it in Good Day magazine. Good Day magazine comes out quarterly from our communications department. You can subscribe for $16 a year. It's a great, it's about between 80 and 100 pages each time, full of content that you can use in your halls. So please subscribe and get that information out there. Amanda, do you have anything else tonight?
I don't. I'm looking forward to seeing Kim probably again at the end of the month, although you are excused if you don't want to come back to the e-member forum. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you visit us for the trivia night next week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Sorry. Oh, I don't know what's going on anymore. It's been a long Monday. But it's been a great Monday because we had you guys here. So thank you all so much for joining us. Also, I'll have next week.
Sure you can share.
Yeah. Next week I will have.
Did you get it in your email?
Got it. Thank you.
Next week.
I mean, could you share it?
Membership Matters at 8:30 Eastern, so 5:30 Pacific, which is our monthly Zoom about membership. So you can join us there for that. And last thing is, if you have any suggestions for membership department or for membership matters or any of that type of stuff, please don't hesitate to email me. Super easy to do, membership@nationalgrange.org. And so, yeah, please send me suggestions. Complaints, concerns, etc., might be given to the trash. No, I'm joking. I'm happy to hear that.
So can everybody
Anyway,
see
this is what I put
Elise's
together. Yeah.
shadow box? So it comes with an American flag, comes with you said there's a Bible in there?
Oh,
Like
I don't
also-
have a Bible in there.
Oh,
A little miniature Bible. I should have done
a
that.
miniature Bible. And comes with the settings for Series Pomona and Flora. It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
And I threw in some pins I won at the expo also.
That's awesome. I love that. It's like a Grange meeting in a box. Okay, so from me, thank you all for being here tonight. I really appreciate your time. There is some more stuff coming up in Grange Month. I just dropped the Grange Month 2022 link in the chat. Tomorrow night is our community service forum with Community Service Director Pete Pomper. Next Monday is for state secretaries only. So if you're not a state secretary, don't tune in. But that's our National Grange Secretary, Debbie Campbell, is going to be kind of guiding our state secretaries through some forms that they need to take care of and some things that apply pretty much just to them. Then next Tuesday night, Amanda's in charge again with Membership Matters. And next Wednesday night is our legislative roundtable with our legislative department, Burton Eller, our legislative director, and Sean O'Neill, our legislative assistant. We're going to be talking through some of the policies that we're working on right now at the National Grange level, some of the friends we're making on Capitol Hill and in other departments around the Capitol. So thank you all for being here again. There is a ton of information on the Grange Month page. This is being recorded so that I can edit it down a little bit tomorrow, or probably not tomorrow, later this week, so that it will go up on that page, and everything that we're doing on these Zooms will all be available to you as members in the coming weeks. So thank you all for being here tonight. And with that, I'm going to say goodnight and I'm going to end the meeting. So take care. Have a great night, everybody. And thank you for being here.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.